Recording in progress and the webinar has started. That means, at least theoretically, we're live and people should be joining in. So, yep, looks like we're getting some attendees in. We can go ahead and kick things off with a quick round of introductions on who you're hearing from, who you're going to be hearing for the next, hour or so. I'm Catherine Davis, work at Addigy. I'm the head of product. Been in the Apple admin space for more years than I'd like to admit out loud, but well over a decade. Um, I'll go ahead and toss it over to Manny, who's also from Addigy.
Manny Cabrera, manager solutions architect team here. Well versed in everything Apple, has been similar to Catherine, over 10 years of experience in the roundabout business, also very familiar with the MSP business. But here just to be able to collaborate and be able to provide some really good information to the folks out there. Thank you. Pass it over to Justin now.
And thanks, Manny. Hi, everyone. My name is Justin Esgar. I'm the owner of the Virtua Consulting Group, home of Virtua Computers. We're an Apple-based MSP, been around since 2008. I've been in this industry longer than that. Unfortunately, I am one of, I think, Addigy's first customers in the very beginning. And Virtua Computers is the only Addigy professional services company so far in existence. I like holding that title. And I won most humorous in times of pressure from Addigy like a couple of weeks ago. So super excited about that, and I'm very happy to be here to help my friends at Addigy talk about their product today to all of you.
Awesome. Well, we are excited to have you. And the title is well earned. If anyone hears Justin or sees him at ACES or anything, you will immediately learn it's well earned. But yeah, so looks like we're getting some of the people filing in. So we'll go ahead and kick this off. Thanks everyone for joining for this webinar. We're going to be talking about, scaling secure Apple management without growing your headcount. We've got a couple people from Addigy, and then of course Justin's got the expertise. But we think about the world, like, just to set the stage, like, the device counts are growing. People are expected to not only manage more devices with higher security in a higher risk, higher pressure environment, but they're also asked to do that with fewer and fewer resources. You don't have room to grow your teams. Maybe there's just hiring freezes. Things are happening so that you really just can't throw people at it. I think back to, again, dating myself a little bit, back when I was a Windows systems administrator, and it was 2010. Yeah, 2010, and the iPad was released for the first time. And I worked at a university, and everybody wanted iPads in the classroom and set up for everything. Well, fun fact, there was a very brief period of time where there was actually no mobile device management for iPads after it was released, because it didn't come out until iOS 4.0. So everything was manual. And I was fortunate enough to have an army of student employees that I could just be like, go do the thing. It's not really how that works for a lot of companies now, especially when we're remote and located all over. You can't just send people down. So we're going to kind of talk about that and how automation and modern management tools really help with that. Manny or Justin, you want to add anything to our kind of kickoff?
Yeah,
Manny.
absolutely. So, essentially as you all are probably in the more Windows focused space, right? Our goal is to be able to help you understand that managing Apples is not very different than managing any Windows environment you have today. You just want to make sure you have the right tools in place and be able to make sure that you want to be successful using the right tools, right? Having worked in the MSPs many hats ago, I can understand how you have to be a jack of traders and be able to essentially have the ability to wear many hats simultaneously in the same day, right? You want to be able to go from fixing a network panel to be able to essentially log in and create a user directory for a new employee that is onboarding for a customer, but at the same time, you're also need to be able to prepare a Mac to get it started for that new employee, for that customer, right? Along with all the other service tickets that you have hanging around, right? And if you have to go through that process and do it manual, wow, I can only imagine, because I've been there and I know exactly how that feels. So, and once you understand what it looks like to be able to manage an Apple device, you in my case, I never wanted to go back to Windows. I'm not going to say that that's the same case for everyone here, but I can say that you probably will be more lenient in preference and to be able to manage an Apple device moving forward. Justin, what has been your experience in the last years of, managing your Apple devices and growing your Apple footprint?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, I've been in this industry a long time, and going back from when we would use tools like remote desktop to like just log into someone's computer on an insecure line in 2004 to what we do today. When Apple released what was the start of MDM, it changed the game for a lot of people. The ability to push controls to devices, Macs, iPads, iPhones, eventually to the watch, to the Apple TV, to the Apple Vision Pro, if you're so lucky to get one. It has really changed how we, as IT providers, MSPs, admins, take care of our fleets. Apple paved that way with MDM, and now on the Microsoft side, you all are getting the benefit of that from using things like Intune and getting away from your traditional RMM only plans. Now you have the ability to set controls from an organizational standpoint and have it be cloud based. I joke that COVID, it was a game changer, and I don't mean that in the negative way, but in the positive way for IT people, that it allowed all of us to finally prove to our customers we don't need to be in your office every day. For us, all of our customers are like, well, we don't see you. What are we paying you for? And I was like, you don't need to see us. We're doing everything in the background. Trust me. And then when COVID happened, I was like, see, you're still running because we're still doing everything in the background. So it kind of worked out. And as we've moved forward, I mean, it's been 6 years now. The technology is getting bad. It's getting better. It's faster. It's stronger, right? $6 million man kind of thing. There's a couple of solid players that do the things we need to do. Addigy is the gold standard for Apple management when you're doing, especially when you have multi-tenancy, um, comparative to Intune on the PC side. And there's nice integrations between the two. So I think there's been a very big upshift. What's said, Catherine, you mentioned something about the iPad coming out. I have a first generation iPad up there that actually has engraved in it a demo unit, not for resale. Don't ask me how I got it, but it was great to see that come out and see how that technology can work, because I really think it was the iPhone and the iPad that really spawned what MDM started as, and to where we are today, where we can get computers to be in some sort of level of compliancy, right? To have phones that are protecting data between their personal and their work lives. It really has changed how companies can look at security and compliance and protection and efficiency and productivity. So yeah, long-winded answer. I apologize.
No, it's great, and I will admit it gives me some flashbacks to my like SECM 2007 days, and I'm so glad we've grown since then. Not just on the Windows side, but definitely on the Apple side. I mean, back then, MDM didn't exist, to your point. So yeah, I think just to kind of transition into kind of some of the next topics, we're going to launch a poll. Curious for the people that are joining us today, who's managing your Apple devices today? We know that people are always at different stages, and just curious, if it's a managed service provider that's supporting multiple customers, maybe it's your internal IT team, maybe it's a hybrid, you're doing some co-management, or maybe you're just getting started and you just have one or two test Macs or iPads, and you're like, how in the world do I manage these? So please answer that poll question, and we'll, kind of talk a little bit more about, what happens when environments grow and also the environment mix of devices. A lot of people are going to a user choice program. Maybe they're choosing more Macs, more iPads. They're, taking some of the consumer things that they're used to and bringing them into the workplace. How do teams deal with that when your team size isn't growing? Maybe you're a Windows admin, a Windows shop, and you're suddenly given. I have a really good friend who manages Windows devices, and she was basically handed, hey, here's 40 Macs, you manage them now too. And she's like, I've never used a Mac in my life. Like, how do people even deal with that? Like, I'm curious, Manny and Justin, what kind of scenarios you guys are seeing in terms of handling that and growing.
Yeah, so what in my experience is the first thing is to be able to find a right tool, right? Doing it once, it's okay. Doing it multiple times is not fun, right? Once you encounter that scenario is going to be repetitive, you have to find a solution. And for me, in my case, various MDMs back in the day, right? The footprint in MDM products have expanded. What I found back in the day that worked for me the best is honestly be able to use something like Addigy, being able to essentially have that MDM solution that provides the needs of the speed and be able to essentially make sure that I have something that will allow me to reduce my operation processes and be able to deploy apps. We all know that C-level executives are the most known users to use Apple devices, but they also want to be in the less secure ones. They don't want complex passwords. They don't want, third-party apps to be updated or macOS patching updates to be deployed, because their focus is to help grow the business. So how can you do that in a process that does not interrupt, their business ongoing, and be able to be as least business disrupted as possible, right? So certainly encapsulating the right tool. And I will actually like to quickly show a little bit encapsulate that in how we help customers now and they be able to engrave that, right? So this is the Addigy environment. Maybe most of you the first time you're seeing it, but one of the greatest things that helps me essentially understand what the end user is experiencing is some of the go live features, right? Through the go live experience, you have the ability to be able to run terminal commands, be able to essentially restart, shut down, lock the device in erase, look at performance live, right? Be able to see what kind of software is installed on the machine, be able to run scripts and run some of security audits. So little things like this really makes your day in terms of be able to operate in a more efficient way, right? So you always want to keep in hand that, yes, you have the task at hand, but what is the process that you want to be able to include to be able to reduce that operation times, right? That was my focus back in the day, and I think it's the focus for most of you today. What is your take on that, Justin?
Oh, you're muted, buddy.
Sorry,
Knew
right.
what had
I muted my
happened at
mic.
least
I
once.
muted on my mic so I can type something. If you're a Windows admin and you're now forced to be in the Apple ecosystem, whether it's a Mac or iPhone, doesn't matter. You made a good point, Manny, right? Use the right tool for the right job. If you're going to install new windows in your house, you're not going to use a hammer to do that because that would break the glass, right? Right tool for the right job. Totally agree with that. I think also to what Catherine was saying about her friend who's never touched a Mac. To be honest, look, a computer is a computer. They all go to the internet. They all have pros and cons. There is the concept behind how do I move myself forward to be able to take care of the things that I'm being asked to take care of, right? And so I think the goal for today is not to come in and say, you need to learn 78 new systems. You need to know what you know with your Windows side, and you need to know a couple things on the Apple side and how those two can mesh well. Years ago, I have a client, we have a big nonprofit that we take care of that was an all Apple shop with Google, and the other company that they were merging with was an all PC shop with Microsoft. And luckily, I had a seat at the table in the boardroom, but I'm listening to the IT manager from that company and people from the other company saying like, no, we're going to go all PC. All the Mac people are getting rid of their Macs, they're getting PCs. And all the Mac people were like, no, 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 we're going to move all you guys to Macs. And there was no win. And I shyly raised my hand. I was like, hey, what about employee choice? And they were like, what? And I was like, we can manage both Macs and PCs. You have your internal IT guy do the PC side for this particular client, and we do the Macs, and everybody's happy. And so we were able to like agree on that, and it increased their productivity. So I don't like when I hear a PC MSP or a Windows admin say like, I don't do Mac, I hate Mac, Macs cause problems for me, because what you're doing is you're denying someone in your company the ability to do their job as effectively and as possible. There are tools to manage Macs, and to say like, I don't want to be bothered with it. I think right out the gate, you're coming in with the wrong attitude. If you can say to yourself, you know what, there are going to be Apple devices. The CEO wants an iPhone. We need to be able to make sure it's secure without bothering him. We need to know the tool set that's needed to make that work. That's the right way to go. And coming in with that particular attitude and then picking the right tool, Addigy, it's one of those like just keep spoon feeding it, right? Pick the right tool for it. You can manage that from a very easy posture and make sure that those devices are secure.
Yeah, no, absolutely great points. I'm going to go ahead and have us launch another poll question, just around, what does your organization do when device count grows, but headcount doesn't? And while people are answering that poll, there's a couple really good questions that have come in through the chat that I'm just going to really quickly address before we talk a little bit more. Yeah, so in terms of integrating with existing PSAs, yes, we have a lot of integrations for like ConnectWise, Kaseya, a bunch of integrations. They're listed on our website, or reach out to us. We can give you more information specifically on like what it is, what it does, all of that good stuff. And then in terms of compliance, yeah, we have both monitoring and automated remediation for things like CIS level 1, level 2, CMMC. Yes.
Can I touch on
Yeah.
that, Catherine, for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, I've recently went to a security class where we discussed the idea of getting Macs secure for compliance. So for the Windows admins who don't know, you need to do a little reading on what's called the MSCP program or the ISCP program. It's the Mac Security Compliance Program or iOS Security Compliance Program. There have been a lot of very smart people who came together and created a great framework to make Macs secure to these compliance levels. I think NIST was the kicker, and everything else kind of stemmed off of it. Addigy is the only, we keep saying MDM, but to be honest, now called a DMS, Device Management Service, is the only service that I know that can get computers into a compliance and remediate it and report on that without me having to do anything else. Once I've told the computer, these are the benchmarks, I want it on CMMC and I want it to auto remediate, I'm done. Which means I have finished making an entire client CMMC compliant with a couple of clicks and I'm done. You can't do that on Windows. Like I have looked, and if someone wants to correct me, I look forward for your tweets and emails, but like I've yet to find the tool that does that on Windows. And that has been a massive game changer that we can get a computer, we can get an entire client compliant within a very short amount of time. And it takes 5 times as long to get the Windows machines into that same compliance.
Yeah, and pulling a little bit of thread on that, Justin, you're absolutely correct. I just wanted to go ahead and show the audience a little bit what that looks like in the platform just for a few seconds to get a feel of it. So in Addigy, you have what is called a catalog, but under that compliance stance, these are all of our benchmarks that we have today, right? We have CIS level 1 for the different macOS versions, CMMC level 1 and level 2, and we also have these as stick. What's great about it is that we can also deviate from the standard benchmarks. We know that is sometimes a one size fits all is not what is applicable for all the different requirements and regulations that you need for your internal audit. So you can just simply click select and clone and select your benchmarks. Once a benchmark is applied to it, a simple remediation process will happen on the device level and be able to essentially see the type of compliance status that you have. Once you have your compliance status, you can also run historical reports on the compliance performance of your devices and such. So as Justin explained, very easy to do. We're able to essentially enforce your the compliance stance on your devices and have the ability to be able to meet your security audits through a process.
Yeah, I think that has been an absolute game changer for the clients that we have that need that, especially in those mixed environments. Putting together those compliance reports. I will say this as just as an asterisk, we do not write what the benchmarks should be. We have engaged with a cybersecurity firm to write those benchmarks, and I've given them all of the the items within the benchmark, like as an Excel document to the cybersecurity firm. And I said, okay, client A, tell me what needs to be on. Client B, tell me what needs to be on. They come back to us and then we push it out. But Addigy has made it like super easy to do all of that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that a little bit more, since I know this is especially if you're newer to the Apple side and don't necessarily know how to do all the testing yourselves, one of the things that, we've heard a lot and Addigy has really leaned into is before we push out any updates to our automated remediation, say there's updates to the benchmarks, say there's updates to Apple's OS, or heaven knows, everything changes so fast. We actually have a team internally that vets all of those. So you're not just pushing them out and potentially bricking all of your devices. That's something that, some other tools that say, hey, we automatically remediate, compliance or automatically enforce these benchmarks. Yeah, they do, but they'll just kind of push scripts out right away. It's not necessarily tested internally, whereas we make sure we're testing it against multiple kinds of devices, different versions, really putting it through its paces. And then in addition to that, we had all the ones that you could see when Manny was showing it. We're actively like adding more and then getting them through that vetting and constant testing process. But we also have custom benchmarks, which a lot of people use. I know like I saw someone say HIPAA in the chat. That's something we're working on adding as like a predefined click and deploy one. But you could add everything that you need with custom benchmarks right now. And if you don't need everything in like CIS level 1, you can say, okay, cool, I want 70 of the 94. I think there's 94. But yeah, so a lot of flexibility there. And it's actually been tested on real devices, which is something that you don't see a lot in the Apple world, unfortunately. With that, we kind of talked a little bit. We've been jumping around on our topics, but I think this was really good to talk about some of the compliance and security right away. I think though it would be great to kind of talk about scalable automation. From my perspective, having been again a lifetime ago in the admin seat and from hearing from customers, hearing at conferences, what people are dealing with, I really see that as starting off on the right foot when you're kind of onboarding and deploying your Macs, your iPads, your iPhones. You're getting that fleet set up and having a really good standard kind of from day one with the right tool. I'd love to hear, what you do, Justin, or what you see with regards to like zero touch deployments and reusable workflows and kind of how you structure that in order to be more scalable.
Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, with COVID, everyone went distributed. So we don't touch computers anymore for setup, right? So I guess show of hands in the Zoom, like how many of you as Windows admins understand Apple Business Manager? Because that's kind of a key element to this whole piece working. With Apple Business Manager, which for the most part, you can consider it like a device management or inventory management for devices, users, and apps. That's your starting point. This is something that I find that a lot of Windows admins don't look at, which is getting Apple Business Manager for security purposes anyway. But Apple Business Manager is where it starts, because what happens is any Mac that we ship out to a client, I have clients all over. I'm in New Jersey, so I have clients in Colorado, Hawaii, whatever. When they turn the computer on, as long as the device was purchased the right way, it's in Apple Business Manager, and Apple Business Manager is tied to our Addigy instance, that computer is going to turn on and it's going to say, hey, this computer is owned by your organization. Click here to go. And you hit it, and all of a sudden now the computer sets itself up. It downloads all the apps that are required. It adds the user account that's acquired. It downloads all the profiles and all the security tools and everything. Boom, right to it. All of a sudden, the user just has to log in. And if it's configured with, let's say, Microsoft for Platform SSO, the user only has to be given their Microsoft account credentials. Or if you want to take it to another level, you can go so far as to give them temp credentials, let them set up two-factor authentication on their phone, and then they never need their password, which is kind of cool. But you have to do it in that order. It has to be Apple Business Manager to your device management service, Addigy, and then within there, you've configured everything. This allows my team to like ship a computer somewhere from Apple to wherever. We say, hey, turn it on, turns on. We say, wait an hour for everything to download, depending on how much stuff they're downloading, because it's on their internet. And then we do whatever we need to do to white glove the rest of it if we're going to do that. Most of the time, we don't have to. That's signing people into things or whatever. That's the white glove part. But from a zero touch, it's literally, if it's configured properly, it's turn it on and go. And that's the best part of it. So if you're not aware already with ABM do that. I see in the chat here, Stephen Jenkins wrote, if you have Macs in your company, you don't use ABM, you're doing yourself a disservice and wasting money. That is very close to the right answer here, Stephen. Even if you don't have Macs in your company, you should have Apple Business Manager. I know I'm off topic for a second, but to ensure that no one is creating unmanaged Apple accounts with your company domain. Apple Business Manager allows you to claw those back. So right there, security point. Plus, you get to manage, you get to push your Macs in there to go to Addigy. So plus plus, right? There's so much that you're going to do there. If you're going to push Apple apps to iPhones, iPads, and Mac devices, you need Apple Business Manager to purchase those apps through what they call the volume purchasing program or content management now, and push that out. So start there, connect it to Addigy, ship a computer, French chef's kiss.
And
So it
add
is.
Addigy Assist. That way you can have the end user's experience be just icing on top of the cake, right? Be able to
Oh
just
yeah.
tell the end users exactly what's happening on their machine. Totally game changer nowadays because that just complements the end user experience end to end. So
Yeah, it's like a little window that pops up. It says like, I'm now installing Google Chrome. I'm now installing Firefox. Please wait with a little bar that I think every IT admin in the world knows what that bar means. But like it does tell you that things are being installed. That way that user knows what's happening and then they're ready to go and they're prompted with a login.
yep.
Yeah, it's especially nice. Like we are able to do things with like applications. For example, we have what's called pre-built applications. So that's a big thing. Like again, like thinking back to the evolution of some of the things people request is like, okay, cool. How do I get, you know, this application, PowerPoint, math notes, who knows, whatever the user wants on my device. Well, one of the things to look at for Apple management is the click and deploy and automatically keep things up to date. So even if you're not the person that's installing, maybe you're only partially managing your Macs, you're not fully there, but Chrome, there's a CVE vulnerability like every other hour for Chrome. It's like always needing to be updated. Even if you weren't the one that installed software, if it's in our pre-built applications catalog, we can automatically update it to the newest version based on that. So it's basically, even if the user's installing stuff that maybe you're not intentionally pushing out, make sure it's up to date so they're secure anyway.
There's your Windows patch management that people live and die for on in their RMMs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna launch another poll just because I'm really curious with this one. With the group, how automated kind of is your Mac onboarding today? So I think we'll get that one popped up. And we'll kind of continue on with this, but wanted to just kind of talk about like, we've really been focused on security, compliance, kind of that zero touch, but it's all very like linked together. And how do we make sure, like, say you're a new admin or you're transitioning from like Jamf, or I've seen some other ones in there like Meraki,
Well,
like
the Meraki system manager that's end of
yeah,
life all of a sudden. Now everybody's jumping
exactly.
ship and trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how do you start to look at that as like, okay, cool, I need a tool where I get security and compliance and automation without the added effort? Like, what are the critical things that you guys see that need to be looked at? What are the kind of biggest things? Like, we touched on one touch deployment of compliance, but like, there's got to be more. I know there's more.
I mean, for us, a lot of this is what we're pushing in a packet I'm putting the word package in quotes because it has double meaning here. Like what we're pushing in a package when we deploy a device, right? Because between apps that we're grabbing from the volume purchasing program or content and tokens, between and then now we have pre-built apps so we can push things like Chrome and Firefox regularly and keep them updated. And then profiles, which are going to be setting those restrictions on these devices to allow or not allow certain things. Like there's your kit and caboodle for output. And that's going to allow the end user to have a great experience. But as the admin, you're going to want more than just the end user having a great experience. You want to have a great experience with it also. And if you can kind of set it and forget it, like I got to admit, like we have, I don't know, 70 policies in our Addigy right now, right? I don't know the last time anyone on my team has updated the onboarding process in terms of the what's in Addigy. Maybe we've added a couple of apps here and there, but like we don't have to touch it. We don't have to change. Once a year, we have to update the certs, but we don't have to touch the rest of it. It's set and done. A device is purchased and it enrolls and does what it needs to do. On top of that, though, we have really nice features in Addigy that allow us to pull custom facts. And we can get information about computers. We can see its uptime. We can see its IP address, its internal IP address, its MAC address, all of these really important pieces of data that as an admin, we needs to do something with. And so all of that's in there. And I think also on top of that, those facts play into Addigy's like maintenance tools. So if a computer hasn't been rebooted in 7 days, Addigy itself pushes out the notification to the user saying like, hey, hi, it's time to reboot, right? Those are built in, cleaning out cache files and temp files that normally get filled up, built-in maintenance. Turn it on and walk away. So like it's been really easy to maintain the health of these devices that we take care of because of what's already pre-built into Addigy and enabling just a couple of buttons.
Yeah, that's correct, Justin. And as you expanded that, it reminds me of the days where basically you got an urgent request and you had to use like either profile manager or you had to use Apple configurator, right? And be able to essentially configure those devices and be able to jump the hoops, right? Like how long ways we have come from that. And I just want to like quickly share with the audience a little bit of what actually you meant around some of the automation that happens in the back end, be able to assist with that process, right? Again, if we go to one of our policies here, we have what we call the maintenance items, right? And we have a daily reboot for APM, flush DNS, but you have over 300 device facts that you can go ahead and use. You can even use your own script and be able to put a frequency to it. You also have your general monitoring events that just alerts, as Justin explained, to some of admins here what's going on with the device. So you have over 240 of them right available right out the box to be able to use, plus the ones you can add to your own script. So having those items available makes sure that you as the admin know what the actual status of the device is, and it gives you that reassurance to be able to make sure that the end user is at a good place to be able to have a managed Apple device, right? So going to the rethinking of how we manage Apple devices today, 9 days from using Apple Configurator, and to be able to use something like Addigy to be able to essentially expand and create workflows that were not thinkable years ago.
And being able to put a lot of security on that stuff too, right?
Yeah, and making it so that the security and the secure state is like the default rather than kind of the, oh, I happened to be able to set this Mac up in the way I wanted to. I think, Manny, to your point of like, it's night and day different to even how it was a couple of years ago, not just with like our tool, but the industry entirely. I mean, Apple's been moving over to declarative device management, which for those of you that don't know, traditional mobile device management, we as the device management service have to kind of ping the device and kind of push information, whereas declarative device management, aka DDM, it's making an attestation on the device. So the device kind of keeps itself in check. It knows what its default state is. And so there's less of a downtime in terms of making sure that it's in the secure and compliant state, has all the configurations that you want. So as you're kind of looking at Apple, like that is the way that they've been making it very clear they're going. Declarative device management, if I could talk, lots of those big fun words. That's a really big thing to kind of keep an eye on as you're evaluating your options and how you're going to grow, because there's a lot. I am going to really quick plug the Addigy video series. If y'all are new to Apple management, especially, my team, the product managers and myself are doing, it's called the MDM Field Guide. We're taking some of these meaty topics that might seem a little overwhelming, like, okay, cool. VPP, volume purchasing program. How do I deal with applications and licensing and pulling licenses back or doing things like that? What in the world are OS updates with declarative device management? Putting them into small snippets, videos that are really consumable. Check it out. And also let us know if there's a topic you want to hear about. Sorry, that was my just little plug to get more info for people, because It's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just to add to that, Catherine, there can be patching Tuesday for macOS and iOS devices as well, right? Apple has made it very e easy nowadays to be able to make sure you have a patching mechanism with declared device management. And we've seen, at least in our platform, great success using DDM, right? And we just continue to expand on that. But in addition to that, now there's less conversations of the admin not wanting to update the device because the experience has improved so much that now it's coming almost second nature, as we notice in the at the end user level, to be able to understand what patching is because it's less disruptive as it used to be in the past.
Something else I want to add on, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, Manny. One of the things you're pointing out with the custom scripts and the monitoring, everything we talked about, because someone had asked earlier about integration with PSAs. All of that information get piped into your PSA. So like we use Halo PSA, and there's a great integration. And the reason we went to Halo PSA from Zendesk was because it had a built-in Addigy integration. And if something happens in or was reported by Addigy, it will open a ticket on our Halo PSA. And if it solves itself, because like maybe a script ran, it will close the ticket in Halo PSA. Or someone might, if it doesn't close because of a reason or it needs more human intervention, my team can handle it. So having those data points and there's so many data points within Addigy about a device piped into our PSA so my team can handle it means that we as admins are taking care of the end users far better than guessing at what's wrong or waiting for them to come to us with something that's wrong, right? Being able to say like, hey, your Backblaze isn't backing up because of this, and because we have a custom fact that tells us the last time it backed up, allows us to be able to make sure that their data is safe before they go, hey, I dropped my computer in the lake. When was the last time I backed up? Right. So it comes in handy to have all of that data. And it's not data for data's sake. I'm not a big fan of that, but you can program in relevant pieces that for you as an admin and have that pipe outwards to be able to be a better admin for your end users.
No, absolutely. I think one of the things that, like, having been in this space for a long time and having worked, for those people who have know me and have seen me around potentially, like I worked for Jamf for many years as a product manager there. I've been an admin, speak at some of the conferences. One of the biggest things that I hold kind of near and dear to my heart as a tenant is designing workflows around the user experience while also supporting the admin. And so a lot of that comes into how are you setting up for your workflows? Are you being proactive versus reactive? A lot of people come into the Apple admin space and they were Windows admin. So like, I want to just talk a little bit with you guys about, some of the differences in how we have to think about things like, configuration profiles. They're a little bit different than GPOs. Macs don't need constant reimaging or constant reconfiguration. I guess, Justin, Manny, do you have stuff you want to kind of talk about what you're seeing in the field and with your customers?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's setting the profiles, especially when it comes to things like security. It you got to remember that MDM was based around profiles, what Windows people call GPOs, right? It was around the idea of setting these restrictions, what is allowed and not allowed on a device. And it grew from there. One thing to think about, though, for Addigy, and I think this is kind of an important distinction, is that, and I'll put this into Windows terms, is that Addigy is both the MDM and an RMM tool together. And that's a very big distinction compared to some of the other DMS services that are out there. To have started from just profiles and putting restrictions on devices to then also be able to remote into a device and help them directly, that has been the ultimate game changer for us as admins, right? Those profiles that we're putting into place can either make the user more productive or add more security. It's never both, right? So like disabling Siri or iCloud Drive or whatever, adds a level of security to a customer, but also maybe pisses off the end user, and that's a different topic. But being able to push those profiles out very quickly, being able to create them right from within Addigy, as opposed to having to write them in another piece of software and bring them in, has made it a lot easier to manage these devices. I think the biggest problem that we run into with it is we're writing so many profiles is keeping the nomenclature clean so we know who's getting what profile. So we have internal documentation around how to name profiles, but that's like an us problem. Maybe, if you're not managing 800, 900 devices across 70 customers, it might be easier to manage. But starting from there and working your way down, right? Because the profiles are the key element here. What are you allowing? We've done things where we had a client who had 3 Wi-Fi networks. They had a guest network, a mobile network, and their main network. And we hid their main network so no one can join it. And then we VLANed it all off. Well, if it's a hidden network, how do we get the device on it? Cool. When the device connects to the guest network, it does all of its automated device enrollment, like we talked about earlier. Hi, this computer's owned by so and so, downloads all the stuff. And included is a profile for the Wi-Fi for the hidden network. And it's set as a higher priority. So and I think we added a script to forget the guest network also. So it does all this stuff, it loads that Wi-Fi profile, it restarts the computer, and then it connects to the hidden Wi-Fi. Like, that's amazing when you think about this, that like, I don't know, 12 years ago, we were all using Nokia 5860s, and now we have these kind of devices that have more power than the Apollo 12 that can immediately connect to a Wi-Fi network because I told it to. Like, that's crazy power for any sort of mobile device management, and then being able to like automate that and say, great, now turn on all 12 Macs or all 12 iPhones. They're all going to have the same experience. Makes a wonderful experience for the company that we're helping.
Yeah, and pulling that thread a little bit more, Justin, I think how we make that process easier for both the admin and the end user is a great talking point as well, because at least in our platform, we have the ability to go into just in the profile section by clicking you automatically see the list of items that you're able to restrict or GPO into the end user's device, right? You have your Wi-Fi payloads, simply name your Wi-Fi, select your protocols or certificates that you need. Once you have it in your policy, you're good to go. You can go back to sleep, right? You have the ability to be able to easily manage your footprint and scale it without having to put much effort into it, right? So as you dig in baby steps into some of these nuances that Justin is explaining, just keep in mind that it is doable. It's not something that is unattainable. Justin speaks very well of it because he's been doing it for quite a while, but doesn't mean that because you're new, you don't get to talk to the same clients as he has. So I think is a great opportunity to emphasize that not only has the practical items had gotten easier, but how we get there as well has gotten much easier as well.
Can I talk about my favorite restriction?
Yeah,
This is truly my favorite. Okay. So for those who don't know, right, we've talked about Apple Business Manager and we've talked about Addigy and how a device will automatically enroll. And we haven't talked about this yet. Well, and I'm basically prompting Catherine to get into the conversation about BYOD. But if you have staff that bring their personal devices and you want to add that level of security, like, we don't want staff checking their email or accessing corporate data on their personal devices. If you have a BYOD policy, great. You can enroll a device in Addigy through BYOD. Now the device has 2 iCloud accounts on it. It has their personal account and it has a managed Apple account that is tied to Addigy. All right. And there's a little technical piece behind this, but I'm going to skip past that. When you do this, you are creating cryptographically separated sections of the phone. Personal data is here, work data is here on the same device. You can actually stop people from copying and pasting from personal to work and from work to personal. And I just showed this off at a conference last week, and the conference was all PC MSPs, and it like literally blew everybody's mind that you can stop this from happening. You can stop somebody from copying data in Microsoft Word on their phone that is pushed from Addigy through a BYOD policy and pasting it into their Notes app in their personal iCloud account. If you want to talk about data security, like, this one checkbox, it's literally one checkbox in the restrictions profile, can save so much time and give you such a higher level of security. Sid just asked a question, bring BYOD without having to reset it. 100%. Apple has on their phones If you have an iPhone, you can do this. If you head over to your settings, you'll see your personal iCloud account right on the top. And under General Device Manage VPN and Device Management, you can sign in with Worker School, very similar to like what you see on the Microsoft side. You sign in with a managed Apple account that you built in ABM, and boom, now the device is in two systems. So you can, I know it's kind of hard to see on my camera, but you'll see my iCloud, and then you see one called Addigy MDM right underneath it, because this device is my personal phone, also enrolled in Addigy with BYOD. So there's amazing technology that Apple is, there's amazing frameworks that Apple has put into place that Addigy has capitalized on to ensure that you can do uh, this type of management and protections. Now, when you have BYOD, no, you cannot erase somebody's phone. No, you can't look at their pictures. No, you can't look at their text messages. They think you can because it says something, and that's not Addigy's fault. That's Apple's fault. But no, we can't. Nor do we want to, really. That's what I usually tell people. People are like, you can read my text messages? I'm like, I do not want to read your text messages. I talk to you on a regular basis. I know who you are. I don't need to go any further into the psyche of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Justin, to that point, like Apple is known for taking user security very seriously. And the way they've implemented BYOD definitely, sometimes makes it harder for us as a device management when we're looking at BYOD. Like there are limitations. There's people that are like, well, I want to track where the iPhone goes. I'm like, cool, personally owned devices. We've got limitations. There's a lot more nuance to what we can and can't do. But it's really nice for organizations where it's more common. Like I remember back when I used to carry two phones around. A lot of people used to do that where it's like, cool, I want to separate personal and work. Now you don't have to do that by having different devices, which I'm not going to lie, I'm lazy. I don't want to take two phones everywhere. Makes it nicer.
You don't just like Velcro them together so it looks like one phone.
I mean,
But
Justin,
then you can't use the camera.
I I don't have pockets. Let's be real.
That's
Um,
true.
women's clothing, so I just need my one phone so I can actually carry it. But it's something that people are oftentimes when they're coming from like the Windows world, equivalent to like man, the mobile application management, being able to kind of like do data segmentation. Apple's really kind of honed in on this, and we've taken a lot of like effort to, I like to say, do it right as Addigy, because we care about security. Apple cares about security. Cool. Let's bring those two things together and make a good user experience. So,
You talk a great point there, Catherine. And one of my favorite things that I'm glad we don't have to do anymore, bind Mac OS devices to Active Directory. I know that's a big topic. I know everybody has their preference, but I'm very thankful to how we can get to user authentication much easier, password resets much easier. I don't want to keep doing Kerberos extensions and be able to essentially timeout tickets all the time. So with new platform SSO introductions, other tools that we have integrated in Addigy, such as Addigy Identity as well, it just makes that end user authentication that we no longer need to bind devices to Active Directory. So
Addigy Identity has been a game changer for us. So for those who don't know, Addigy Identity is Addigy's way of allowing the user to sign in with Microsoft credentials, Google credentials, and I think Okta credentials out the gate. This came out before Platform SSO, which is only Microsoft and kind of Okta now. But and you guys can all laugh at me. We do a lot of Google. We're a big Google workshop company. And so having our users be able to log in to their computer with their Google credentials means one less password for them to remember, means we have two-factor authentication on their logins because they're using their Google credentials, which has two-factor authentication. And we didn't have to add any sort of extra software to make this work. It's caked into Addigy. So configuring that also super easy. And then all of a sudden now they turn on the computer and instead of a normal login, they get a Google login and they type in their email and their password or whatever it is. They have two-factor against their phone and now they're in their computer. So security, ease for the customer because they remember their password, and providing that level of single sign-on through a tool that Addigy built. For a lot of you that are Windows shops, probably are running Microsoft, you're going to want to look at Platform SSO, also available through Addigy, and that's going to allow your users to sign in with their Microsoft credentials and automatically be allowed to sign into anything else that their Microsoft credentials auto signs them into. So the Office Online's, email, Power Automate, or any other service that you may have used Microsoft OAuth for. So these are things that are already caked into the software. I keep saying cake because obviously I'm hungry for lunch. But it's built into the software, and you don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to worry about another tool, which is what I really like about it.
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up, Justin, because one, I can get really nerdy about identity because I love it. And biggest reason is, we mentioned earlier, you can't usually make a device more secure and also not impede the user experience. You wind up locking something down. User doesn't always love that, but it's more secure. Identity is one of those things where it's like an exception to the rule. It's like, cool, you make it easier for me to log in while also making things more secure. And the nice thing is, Apple especially is really focused on this. Addigy is focusing a lot on this in the coming months. But the more you can keep users from having to remember their passwords at all, move towards passkeys, QR code logins. I mean, password fatigue and things like that are a huge security risk. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate having to remember like 7 passwords and type it in. And it's like, okay, well, that one's like 16 characters. Let me take 2 minutes to type it because I typed it wrong the first couple times.
Mhm.
Um,
Where did I
so
put that exclamation mark in that password?
exactly. So if the goal of identity and what Apple's kind of pushing towards and what Addigy is going towards is like up the security in one of the areas that's considered, a weak area for attacks. Like passwords are still a big thing for getting, attacked and access to your environments, to your devices, but also make the user experience better. Like you don't get opportunities where those things kind of converge very often. And so, again, kind of a nerd about it. It's fantastic. And we're very focused on that for that reason.
And the best thing is that we support both. So pick whatever experience gives you and the end user the best experience, right? If I were to just give a glimpse of what that looks like real quick, you're able to see that under a policy and Addigy, you have the ability to use Azure or Entra ID, Google, and Okta. Once you put in your client ID, redirect URL, and domain, you can choose what the user experience looks like and be able to essentially customize. And if we want to go and deep dive a little bit further, not to nerd out, as Catherine mentioned, you can even use there's user attributes to create workflows in Addigy, depending on who they are, what kind of access, and what kind of content you want to be able to deploy to them based of who the end user is. So pretty cool stuff to check out.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we won't go down the nerd tangent fully for that. But I do want to kind of do a quick time check. We've got looks like about 7 minutes left. So want to just throw it to, uh, Justin and Manny quick for like, what are just high level some of the key lessons that you've learned while supporting growing environments that you wish you would have known before you started?
Naps are good. I mean, all growth is painful in some way, shape, or form, right? Um, I am very thankful for my relationship with Addigy and having been around the game for so long to be able to help really understand some of the back end pieces to make things work. Um, and I wish younger me probably made more friends because I would have like had this type of relationship with other companies as well to make things work better and easier. I mean, the truth of the matter is that like I don't really have an answer for this, like a good answer for this one, Catherine, because like I don't know what I don't know, and I would have never known where the failure points are. Also, you know, Apple's the most secretive company on the planet, right? So like even if I had contacts inside of Apple beyond what I already have, it's not like they would be like, guess what's coming out tomorrow when it comes to MDM? Like that doesn't happen. So staying on top of things, I would probably put more time into studying, right? I'm not a great student, it's cool. But like I this is why I go for my certifications with you guys, for example, or my certifications with Apple, just so I can stay abreast of what's going on. You know, things change in our industry at such a pace that today it's this and tomorrow's that. And no one knows this more than Windows admins because Microsoft's marketing department has really up their game on changing product names on a daily basis. Like if I ask everybody like, "Hey, do you have Defender?" Everyone's answer should be like, "Which Defender do you mean?" Because they have 19 versions of Defender now, right? So I don't know what younger me would have wanted to know truthfully, other than, you know what? It'll be okay.
Yeah,
And
I
one
think
day you get to do a webinar with your friends on do this.
I think the one thing that I can take away, going back to Justin's point, I think certainly building relationships, but more specifically through the Mac admins community, be able to invest more time, perhaps building the Mac admins group and be able to attend to those more frequent, right? For those who don't know, in Slack, there's something called the Mac admins community, in which is free to join, but you have people who are very passionate about Apple, and there's people who are very willing and nilly to be able to provide and lend a hand. And more often than not, you find solutions and workflows and you learn from others. So for me, I think as I was growing into Apple footprint and be able to deep dive more, I think I could have spent a little bit more time building those relationship and community through the Mac admins.
Yeah, absolutely. The Mac admins community is amazing. And then there's a lot of different conferences for once you want to learn a little bit more, and tons of great resources that the Mac Admins Foundation puts out online in terms of like YouTube videos of all the sessions, getting started guides, things like that. Um, cool. Well, thank you, Manny and Justin. I definitely want to say like thank you everyone that has joined us today. Hopefully you got some good takeaways from this. I do want to say if you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Depending on, if you already have someone you can talk to from our sales team or customers, support contact, account representative. Otherwise, the product team loves talking to anyone who's in this space and understanding real pain points. We're product at addigy.com. Nice and easy to remember, hopefully. Otherwise, feel free to reach out, schedule a demo, reach out to us with any questions if you already are an Addigy customer. Yeah, really grateful everybody joined us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. If you need anything, I'm in the Mac admins community in a couple places. We also host our own conference. But if you ever need anything Addigy related or want to talk shop before buy, please reach out to me. I'm always available to help everybody.
Absolutely. And I think all of us are on the Mac admin Slack. So if you ever need anything and forget that, one of the Addigy emails, again, product at addigy.com. The product managers and myself are kind of nerds, so we're happy to talk shop. Otherwise, just Slack us on Mac admins. We're happy to chat about whatever.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much, everyone, for certainly giving us a few minutes of your day, and much appreciated, and hope we can connect again soon in the future.
Yeah.
All right, now let's all go eat cake.
Oh, that sounds so good. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.